Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Afternoon on the national news from Baba Bagide Imo Television. First, the headlines. FG to take over Union Bank, Keystone Bank, allegedly owned by Emefiele. At last, President Tinubu's anti-graft boss reveals name, lists top politicians, looted over 15.3 trillion naira, CBN, Emefiele. EFCC probes 4 Buhari ministers over multi-billion naira fraud, makes arrest. Ex-SGF boss Mustafa speaks on withdrawing over $6 million from CBN under Emefiele. On sports, Super Eagles get Cape Verde, Burkina Faso friendlies in January before the AFCON in Côte d'Ivoire. I am Moriri Rabila Lawal, the news in detail. Federal Bank said it will take possession of 2 banks that were allegedly bought at a major discount by former Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele, according to a report by a special investigator appointed by President Bola Tinubu. We have completed our investigation on this accusation and we are on the verge of recovering these 2 banks for the federal government, the report said. Emefiele was suspended shortly after Tinubu took office in late May and was later arrested and detained on charges including fraud. The Nigerian leader subsequently ordered an investigation into the monetary authority's operations and instructed it to work with security and anti-corruption agencies. Emefiele met his bail conditions and was released Saturday, information citing a congressional spokesperson. The former central banker acquired 2 banks including Union Bank of Nigeria and Keystone Bank through several proxies from ill-gotten wealth and without evidence of payment, according to a report by Jim Obasi submitted to the president and seen. A preliminary review of the cases showed that Keystone was acquired for free. According to the report, some persons were used as proxies with the connivance and assistance of Godwin Emefiele and the CBN to acquire the 2 banks. Emefiele has denied wrongdoing. His lawyers declined to comment on the investigation's findings, and the government spokesman did not immediately respond to a request seeking comments. Jim Obasi, President Bola Tinubu's special investigator, trolling the books of the Central Bank of Nigeria, has accused Ibrahim Gambari and Zainab Ahmed of involvement in mismanaging over 17 trillion naira in public funds in connivance with Godwin Emefiele. The 2 officials who served respectively as Chief of Staff and Finance Minister under former President Muhammadu Buhari were blamed for a series of questionable use of ways and means instruments of the CBN that left the country unable to account for 7.3 trillion naira. Stealing of public funds through advances to government, otherwise known as ways and means, constitutes a criminal offense, Mr. Obasi said in a memo to the president believed to have been delivered on December 20th. The sum of 17.369 trillion naira remains unaccounted for, as neither due appropriation or approval exists to support the diversion of public funds through this medium. This constitutes an offense under the penal code as applicable in the Federal Capital Territory, to which actors and conspirators in these instances are liable, Mr. Obasi added. Mr. Gambari declined comment when briefed on Saturday. The former Chief of Staff appeared to be facing his first public controversy since reported how his son, Bolaji Gambari, was emerging as a top influence peddler following his father's appointment. The October 2020 story infuriated the Chief of Staff, who was a top diplomat at the United Nations for decades, prompting him to order a protracted threatening of our website in Nigeria a few months later in January 2021. The Gazette has continued to fight the matter in court. Between Mr. Gambari and Mrs. Ahmed, who was finance minister until the expiration of last administration in May, trillions of naira went unaccounted for after unauthorized appropriation, Mr. Obasi said, adding that nearly 23 trillion naira in illegal spending was suspiciously authorized to be covered through conversion of Nigeria assets by the National Assembly. Mrs. Ahmed also declined comments. The special investigator said the exploitation of ways and means was a criminal offense that should be severely punished under existing regulations of the central bank. The Supreme Court should be approached to nullify the approval of the 9th National Assembly gave to scrutinize the ways and means of 22.7 trillion naira, Mr. Obasi added. noting that it contravenes Section 38 of the CBN Act 2007. The Economic and Financial Crime Commission has launched investigations into an alleged multi-billion-naira fraud involving 4 ministers who served under the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari. The 4 ministers were said to have laundered over 187 billion naira in 143 bank accounts. This is even as the EFCC has arrested a government contractor, James Okwete, in connection with the ongoing probe into the 37 billion naira allegedly laundered by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development under former Minister Sadia Umar Farouk. A top EFCC official said the contractor had made useful statement concerning Umar Farouk and former Director Generals of the ministry. It is not only Umar Farouk we are investigating. 3 other former ministers are also under probe. They were allegedly involved in the graft to tune of 150 billion naira, a credible source in the EFCC speaks. Effort to reach Umar Farouk for a reaction on the allegations proved abortive as a media aide in Neka Ikem was also not available for comment. Further investigation revealed that the 37.1 billion naira was transferred from the federal government's coffers and sent to 38 different bank accounts domiciled in 5 legacy commercial banks belonging to or connected to Equity. Moving on to the next story, Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka says his assessment of President Bola Tinubu's administration will come after 1 year in office. He stated these in Lagos while fielding questions from State House correspondents. Mr. Soyinka said that these had been his tradition with Tinubu's predecessors over the years. We met last 5 years ago and it was an embarrassing visit because I went to tell him not to run for office. I told him in Atiku to leave the stage for young people. I called him Olori Kuku, which means a stubborn word. He ignored my advice completely. I came to see him to find out how he is doing after neglecting my advice. I wanted to see how he and his wife are faring. I also came to wish him a Merry Christmas, as said the Nobel laureate. The Nobel laureate said that he presented a 7-point agenda to the president towards moving the country forward in this trying period. He said he would not want to disclose what he presented, but added that a critical aspect was that of respect to the rule of law and adherence to the constitution of the land. Nigerians have started reaching to the picture of the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, RCCG, Pastor Enoch Adeboye, sitting on the throne of the Olubon of Orile-Igbon in Oyo State, Oba Francis Alawo Akimbola. The picture, which was first posted on X on Friday by the RCCG Public Relations Department, has since gathered different reactions from social media users. While some netizens condemn the cleric for sitting on the monarch's throne, others blame the king for permitting Adeboye to sit on the exalted stool. Reposting the photo on X on Sunday, an ex-user, Animal Lenokun wrote, Pastor E.A. Adeboye, stop disgracing our heritage. Do your things and respect our culture, please. Don't tarnish the name you have built, because if Yoruba stands up against all this act, you will surely regret it, sir. My stand on this is that Baba Adeboye is doing this intentionally to ridicule the Yoruba Obaship. If you feel disgusted about it as Omoluabi, this is time for you to speak up. This is an abomination. Commenting on the post, another tweet, Elol Jamal 1891 wrote, I feel the blame should be placed under the feet of Olubon. On what basis would he stand up off his throne for Baba Adeboye? It should be the throne with immediate effect. Posted the picture on Facebook, Deyemi Saka wrote, I see nothing but pride in Pastor Adeboye. If he is as humble as you all claim, he would have declined this offer or gesture. One other commentator, Adeboye is an ordinary man and not a god, but he has placed himself in the position of a god by sitting on the throne of a traditional king. It is not in doubt that God comes first, but Adeboye is not God. President Bola Tinubu has appointed Michael Achimugu, a former aide of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, as the director at the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority (NCAA). Shortly before the 2023 general elections, Achimugu had accused his former boss Atiku of corruption and gross financial impropriety using special purpose vehicles to commit financial fraud. Achimugu alleged that he was motivated to take on his former boss because he wanted to educate Nigerians and disuse them from voting for Atiku as president. There are basically 2 reasons which I have repeated over and over on social media First is that young persons like myself who serve politicians will never again be taken for granted. Second, it is to warn Nigerians and educate them before the elections to prevent them from making the greatest mistake ever, he said. If Nigerians think that they have seen corruption before, let them wait until they make the mistake of voting the Atiku family into office. Atinugu's allegation prompted the Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, who was a spokesperson of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, to call for the arrest of Atiku. In a petition dated 16 January, the minister asked the anti-graft agencies to arrest the former vice president on offenses of money laundering, breach of the Code of Conduct Act, conspiracy, and criminal breach of trust and misappropriation. He even filed a suit seeking an order of the court to compel the Code of Conduct Bureau, CCB, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and ICPC to invite or arrest Atiku. Moving on to the east. The Abia Police Command on Sunday said it has rescued all the 4 missing children allegedly stolen in Umuahia. The State Police Public Relations Officer Maureen Chinaka disclosed this in a statement to journalists. The information report that one of the mothers had earlier reported the alleged abduction by an unidentified tenant to the police on December 16. The children belonging to 3 different parents were identified as between 3 and 6 years old. However, Ms. Chinaka stated that 2 of the children were rescued on 22nd December, while another 2 were rescued on Sunday. She said that the police successfully apprehended one Ifeoma Abonyi, a 35-year-old female in Asaba, Delta State, who had been identified as the heir to unknown tenant responsible for the abduction of the 4 children. Finally, on sports. The Super Eagles of Nigeria are due to play high-profile friendly games against Burkina Faso and Cape Verde in January ahead of the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations, which will kickstart from January 13th to February 11th in Ivory Coast. The Super Eagles have been grouped in Group A alongside Ivory Coast, Equatorial Guinea, and Guinea-Bissau. The Nigeria Falls game will be against Equatorial Guinea January 14 at the Ebimpe Olympic Stadium before facing host Ivory Coast January 18, while their last group game will be against Guinea-Bissau January 22nd. Last week, the Nigeria Football Federation submitted a provisional 41-man list to the Confederation of African Football, with the final 27-man list squad expected to be released January 3rd. With that sports story, we've come to the end of today's national news. Before we go, some headlines. FG to take over Union Bank, Keystone Bank allegedly owned by Emefiele. At last, President Tinubu's anti-graft board reveals names, lists top politicians, looted 15.3 trillion naira. EFCC probes 4 Buhari ministers over multi-billion naira fraud, makes arrests. Ex-SGF boss Mustafa speaks on withdrawing over $6 million from CBN under Emefiele. And on sports, Super Eagles gets Cape Verde, Burkina Faso friendlies in January. For update of our broadcast on YouTube, our handle is Bagade Imo Television. Kindly subscribe and click on the notification bell, select option all to access all of our broadcasts. On Facebook, Bagade Imo with Alawi Adibayo. Please like and follow the page. For advert placement, if and services, coverage of events and function, please dial the phone number streaming on your screen. Thank you for watching. I am Moriri Rebila Lawal. Happy Xmas to all faithful Christians all around the world.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.